just keep going, because ultimately, and this is sales 101 regardless, is every no leads you closer to a yes.
Mm-hmm.
So long as that you're trying, you're working hard, you want to get better, I really think that success is going to come to anybody so long as that they keep going, without a doubt.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Closers Network podcast. I have a really special guest today I'm excited to introduce. This guest today introduced himself to me as a classically trained sales pro who sold everything from life insurance to FAA lighting and closed deals most people wouldn't even attempt. He is also a former state champion wrestler, an MMA fighter, and even a world champion kettlebell juggler. That's freaking wild. And guys, I just saw this guy moving a 12 kg kettlebell in front of us and the entire team. And dude, I couldn't even hold that thing. That was intense. Like, seeing it is one thing, and seeing it in person and experiencing it is a total another. So we'll get into that. But this guy's story is about resilience. It's about risk taking, and it's about mastering the long game in sales. He believes resistance is part of the journey. And when you stay consistent, success comes, and it is inevitable. Let's dive in. Please help me welcome, guys, Jared Thomas. Jared, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Mike, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So, dude, I'm really excited because what you just did for everybody that was here at our headquarters here was freaking amazing, dude. Like, how does one even build up? How does even one get into kettlebell juggling?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a great question. And it's funny, no matter where I go, whether it's California or overseas, it's like always the first time that people see it. So it's kind of like a gift and a curse. You always get to be like the thing that opens up someone's mind to possibilities. I had a background in high school. I was a wrestler, and that sport changed my life. I played other sports growing up, especially all the typical ball sports, basketball, baseball, football. I like to tell people that one of the reasons why I wasn't as good in basketball and so forth was because my father was my coach for a lot of those years, but that's not true. The reality is I just caught up to wrestling. Like when I got on the mat and I saw the possibilities, especially once you learn to get thrown down and get back up, man, talk about a metaphor for the rest of your life and how to approach other things. And anyhow, that was by far the foundation that led into all the other stuff. Kettlebell juggling. I also love to swing maces and clubs, do new things like rope flow and types of movements that are holistically good for the body, very satisfying. But basically, the long and short of it is I was a high school wrestler, got into college, did some MMA fights, really enjoyed my martial arts background. Again, huge foundation. Going into COVID, I was teaching a local kickboxing class, Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And of course, that got wiped out because of the pandemic. So once that happened, I somewhere found a steel mace, decided to buy one, and I literally went out to a field out by where I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I just learned how to use this tool. And once I got into it, I started getting into Instagram. I wasn't really a social media guy before that. Started learning how to use it, and then I started to figure out about these other tools, and then I found kettlebell juggling, and before I know it, I've got this whole movement practice where it's totally different, and it's changed my life in so many ways, but it's super fun, satisfying, and I'm always down to talk about it. I can take more than an hour and talk about that or sales or anything else. So anyhow. That's
freaking awesome, dude. So you're a world champion kettlebell juggler and a former MMA fighter. What do you think, like, I feel like a lot of those, the discipline, the toughness, right, that comes from that sport translates into sales, right? What do you feel like most people get wrong about discipline or toughness in sales?
Well, probably just the perception of what that means in its entirety. It's one thing to have an idea about how difficult something's going to be going into it. Kind of like you said, when you hear about kettlebell juggling, when you see my videos, you're like, oh, this is what it looks like. And then you see it in person. It's a different experience. Totally. And so I think there's nothing wrong with it, but I think everybody will always have their expectations adjusted for a variety of things, whether it's things that they were expecting or things that are curveballs to get thrown their way. So more than anything, I think it's a matter of once you get into a situation, making heads or tails of what it means to continue, to fail, to fall down, get back up. And that kind of concept, when done over and over again, truly builds holistic discipline that you're able to catalyze for the rest of your life.
I feel like as a society, we've gotten soft, but I feel like especially some salespeople have gotten extremely soft. Like, do you agree or disagree with that?
I would agree. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I would say, I think, again, going back to some of those expectations, it's like, it's like, if it doesn't go my way, I'm done, or I'm gonna, I'll find something, whatever. And truly, and I doubt anybody would disagree with this, most of the best things in life are gonna be difficult. And it's that journey that helps create that connection where it's really satisfying once you really get good and you enjoy it and things get better and better. So I think the key there is, don't have a pity party to yourself. I mean, it's one thing to vent. It's another thing to complain and to give the responsibility of your problems to something else or someone else. So truly, it's having the reflection in the moments that you reach adversity to then say, okay, I'm gonna do this to make it right. I'm gonna get better at this or that, and constantly seeking improvement. And that's where over time, it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You don't fix your teeth overnight. You brush your teeth twice a day, 365 days of the year to keep them clean. So that concept over time is what bears fruit and results that gives you something to be proud of.
I love it, dude. I love it. And so you mentioned to me that you've been in all kinds of sales. How long have you been in sales, to be specific?
I mean, honestly, even since I was in college, well, I guess maybe even before college and some, teenage jobs I did. But I would say college is when I really cut my teeth. Probably my first real in-depth experience was I was an intern for the Northwestern Mutual Financial Network. They're a life insurance company. And it was totally 100% commission. It was just an internship. And it gave me the opportunity to have to go out and network and figure out how to have, genuine conversations with people, get to know them, and even get through some of my first taste of commission breath, and chasing the dollar before you chase helping somebody else. So that was a really good experience, without doubt. And then from there, I did, basically as soon as I graduated college, I went into a more, like I would say, more traditional classical sales role, salary plus commission. Back then, I was right out the gates out of college. I was working for Otis Elevator, selling elevator upgrades, repairs, service contracts, things like that. Again, another really good formative experience, a lot of difficulties, and it explains things like, not only a technical side of a product like an elevator and a service related to it, but also, the ins and outs of what happens when you sell a job and then somebody else has to go execute it. And then we all have to get around the customer to make sure that that person's taken care of and that they're happy and that expectations meet our ability to execute that work. And so anyhow, that was a really good a building block for me, not only in making sales, but in communicating and setting expectations, game planning, things like that.
That's awesome, dude. And so had you, prior to being with One Call Closers, had you done any remote high ticket sales before this?
Not really. No, I had long story of it's no. I had a brief stint with a company where I kind of got into like a demo position sort of, but no, not really. I was never, I've been basically full-time now doing high ticket sales with One Call Closers since August. And that was basically my first full foray into it.
Dang. Okay. So no experience. One of the things I hear about and know about you, dude, is you're freaking crushing it. And so a lot of people come into the sales organization, right? And they come from all walks of life, some with sales experience, some with not, but not necessarily everybody, becomes part of the 20% of closers, right? That make it, stay consistent, continue to generate revenue, especially in a commission-only opportunity, right? That's challenging. Can you walk us through like what it was like? Had you done remote at all before that?
I done remote, but not high ticket closing.
Not high ticket closing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you walk us through and help us understand like what was it like? I'm not exactly sure which career, what sales gig you had exactly prior to joining this, but out of like all the different sales stuff you've done, like what is the difference between remote high ticket for you and everything else? Is there a difference there?
Oh, mega, for sure. The full-time 100% commission thing is probably the thing that is right away a big difference. And it changes your perspective on your own investment. It going from being in a salary position where you've got a paycheck and a lot of companies will advertise uncapped commissions, but the truth is you only have so much time a day. I mean, it's like there's nothing truly as uncapped as what I'm doing now and now with One Call Closers. So totally different experience. And there's a lot to be said about the ups and downs that can happen and the resiliency that comes along, sticking it out, trying to be better, talking with your fellow closers and getting in tight with people in the community and most people want to see you be successful. So when you find somebody that is rooting for you and cheering for you, come with a willing attitude. And I think before long you will have success.
Man, that's freaking powerful, dude. So you've been around here now since August. You've seen a lot of different closers. You've seen the environment. Do you think it takes talent, or do you think it takes maybe more obsession?
Well, I mean, I think I'll kind of go. I can kind of put those two together in terms of like the desire to help somebody. I think is super important. The desire to have a conversation where you're active listening and you're engaging with what somebody's saying, engaging with their background. When you're able to be fully present with them, because that connects to the person. So there may be, it would be very beneficial going into any sales role for you to like to talk to people without a doubt, and for you to want to build relationships and want to be able to connect with somebody. So to that degree, there's probably some talent that can be helpful, but it's not going to get you all the way because you're not going to get it right, even if you're, like the most top sales closer and whatever past you've had, you're still going to fail. You're still going to have moments where you're like, man, I thought I was going to get that one. Or like, what happened? And you're asking people, getting people to review your calls or asking for help or figuring out what you did wrong. But that's where the obsession part comes in terms of, just wanting to chase being better. And then knowing that it's not going to happen overnight, I think is very critical because like I said, that's where the expectation parts come in, as well as the discipline that gets formed over time. Because it's not going to be perfect day one. It's not going to be perfect probably 365. I'm not even having been doing this for a full year, but I can tell you 365 days, you're not perfect. So there's always ways to get better. I think that's super important.
Speaking of day one, did you start off crushing it, or how did that work out for you? Like, what was it like your first month versus your last month? Here now we're in May. Yeah. So April, let's just say.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important actually, and this is something I definitely would like to talk about because I started like my first day on the calls was like August 20th. I won't forget it. So like because I had like 10 days in August, and I think I sold like 42,000 or something in my first 10 days.
Damn.
That was
good.
Kind of a fun start. Yeah.
Woo,
and then in that next full month, my first full month was September. And I sold like 115K. I was like, I felt good about it. So that was great. But here's the thing, and this is where I feel like I can help some other closers that are out there, especially, is because I hit a lull after that. That first month in September, it was like whatever. I was looking at like objection handling. I wanted to do whatever I could to get people past the line. And if I'm being honest with you, I feel like in those early days, I used some Jedi mind tricks in some ways to like get people to keep clicking and keep moving forward. And it's like, that's great. But with that also comes other things like refunds or people that are moving too fast, and I was using a lot of energy because I had totally invested in it and that's great. And you should be. But over time, it gets easier as you get more comfortable with responses, with experiences. And that way it's just a more straight line path to success versus working really hard to do a bunch of things. And even like some of the people we talk to on VShred, it's like people losing weight or whatever, they'll work really hard and then not get results, so you can do that for a while. And of course, even though I had some good success to start out with, I did a little bit of traveling in October and November. But even with that, I kind of hit a lull. I didn't sell nearly as much in October, November, way lower numbers, even closer to like my first month in those first 10 days, if I'm being honest. And so that was kind of a little bit of a wake up call. And I remember being like, knowing that I wanted to be better. And of course I had December and January to just basically be right in front of the computer working the whole time for the most part, with the exception of a few days off, obviously for some holiday stuff. But then as a result of that time spent and then getting with my guys and some of our group chats and so forth, again, connecting with other closers, from there, that's where the resiliency came in, and like figuring out like, look, how do I really want to do this? How do I want to make sure that I'm having success? I feel comfortable with what I'm doing and in the conversations I'm having. Things are consistent and getting better and better, and that's truly what happened. And so February, boom, it was like a totally new month, I felt like a whole new man of a sales closer at that point, basically.
Damn, there's so much to unpack there. So I want to take it one at a time. So prior to that 115,000 cash collected month, that's a big month, and that's a big commission earning. Had you ever made that type of money up to that point before?
Not in a single month. I'd made quarterly commission. I'd made like 1 or 2 quarterly commission checks before working for other companies, but not in a single month.
So we're talking like almost multiple six, probably like 15, 16,000 that month.
Yeah, and I actually had, well, to be honest, I had some refunds. So it put me at a point where I got knocked down from one tier. So I ended up, but still, I mean, it was like, I think that first full month in September, I made like $11,000.
Dang. Okay. So here's the interesting that I find, and I could be totally off about this, but like you met Christian above, right? I think Christian onboarded you into this whole thing, and we can probably get into that.
Yeah.
But Christian, the first time he left his job, he was a construction worker, and he came into One Call Closers, and he happened to be placed on an account I was managing at the time. And dude, Christian came in, he had been making $4,000 or $5,000 a month. That was like all he had been used to, right? And dude, he came in and he made $12,000, right? And he hit a lull. And this is the classic case that I see. I'm not saying this is you. That's why I'm bringing this up, because I want to get your take on it.
It was me, probably.
Okay, because it was like, hey, what happened is he took the foot off the pedal, and he told me this. He shared this with me. He told me, dude, the next 3 months is covered. Like, he had never made 12K before. So he realized like, oh, dude, like I made enough to cover me for the next 90 days. That urgency wasn't there, right? He didn't have the same resiliency that he had before in the first month, because the first month was like sink or swim, dude. I just left my safety job. I got a family. I got this. So he, sink or swim. And then sure enough, this pattern has repeated, though, not only with Christian multiple times, but I've seen it happen even just a couple of weeks ago. Right, with a closer of mine who had made $7,000 in a month, and he had never really made, that was the best month he's ever had. And I was like, dude, what happened? And he's like, well, you know what happened? He's like, I got comfortable. And I'm like, what do you mean you got comfortable? How much money did you make? You made like 7,000. He's like, well, I only need 3,000 to get by. I'm like, bro, you think like 3,000's a lot or 7,000's a lot? Like, there's so much room in the tank, right? And what I found interesting in what you said, dude, is you're someone who embodies resiliency. You're obviously a world champion in kettlebell juggling, which is not an easy endeavor. It takes a lot of mental bandwidth, discipline, resiliency. What I kind of caught you saying earlier is like, hey, like you tapped into the team and you got that resiliency back. So I find this really interesting, because even someone of your magnitude, right, who's very successful, who's got the mindset locked in, who's in great shape, who's got a lot going on for him, needed a little bit of support, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through because there's a lot of people out there that might think, well, I'm not like Jared. I'm not a world champion. I'm not there. Right. And everything's dialed in, because that guy, it's not as sexy, right? So if you can kind of just walk us through, like, what does that look like when you do tap into the team? How do you get your resiliency back? I'd love to kind of understand that process.
Yeah. I mean, so that's definitely a huge part. I mean, especially because we're remote, and
yes.
And that probably isn't said as often. It's like, you've got to have a lifestyle. Once you get off the calls, whether it's good or bad, you're going to go about your rest of your life and your day. And so I think it's important that, I mean, not only when you're not on the calls, that you're spending time watching calls, watching, whatever your favorite salesperson personality is out there, wanting to get better. But also, the good thing is again, you aren't alone, even though physically you are. And so where you're not alone is that they're certainly here at One Call Closers, a team of people that want to see you be successful, and probably peers, especially who are going through what you're going through or have been what you're going through, and they want to see you be successful. So I think that's super important. And not only that, just kind of like I said at the beginning about discipline and setting expectations. It's like, again, probably some of the best advice is like, it's awesome to crush a month. It's great, but it's not nearly as good as crushing 12 months out of 12. or whatever it is, 36 over 3 years or whatever the case is. That is the mentality that I'm beginning to develop, and that's really changed the perspective for me because it's great to have a good month, but you not only do not want to let off the gas pedal, but you want to have things for the long term, because at the end of the day, here's what's also going to change your perspective of what you can do in your life wealth-wise and what dreams you have and what opportunities you have. There's a lot of things that I want to do with kettlebell juggling and my flow practice and things like that I would love to continue doing. But just as well, because of the opportunities that this has given me, I'm like, man, I want to keep my foot on the gas pedal as long as I can pay off, debt. Like, I mean, whether it's a house or mortgage, or you've got credit card bills, or whatever the case is, and keeping that mindset that it's not, no matter even if you had the best month out of a team of 150 closers, there's still things that you need to accomplish and people that need you to be a better version of yourself. I think that's super important. So if you can give yourself that opportunity with that mindset early on to say, look, I know that I did good here, but if I need to keep getting better, especially in those first few months, because there's so much to learn. There's a ton of different types of calls that you won't even be able to get into until you're really advancing yourself. So it's always going to get better. Lots of things to talk about there for sure.
Damn, dude, that's next level stuff right there. Dude, you're dropping gongs. But dude, oh man, there's so much you said there. One of the things, dude, I've realized being in this space, and that's why it breaks my heart when I see someone, I'm like, who's got an opportunity in front of him and is not necessarily making the most of it. I like to say, I like to say squeezing the juice out of the lemon, every little drop, right? Because what I've realized in just life in general is opportunities always come and go. They don't always last forever. And if you have something that's in front of you that can give you an opportunity to change your life, dude, like, operate with that level of urgency, right? And, something else that you said that my father's always shared with me growing up, or not growing up necessarily, but when I got in sales, and he always said, like, because I would be tough on myself and I'd have a bad day, I'd have a bad week, I'd have a bad month and whatnot. And he's like, dude, you can't look at what you do in sales necessarily in just a day, in a week, or in a month. Like, you got to look and analyze, where were you at 365 days ago, and compare yourself to a year at a time. Right. And it just kind of changed my trajectory and perspective. I was like, dude, that makes sense,
One thing. So one thing I might say about kind of that discussion about difficulty and adversity, and just know that you'll find those highs, of course, and that'll be awesome. But don't feel down about yourself. I mean, you always want to improve, but like when you get to that point where you feel like, man, I haven't had a sale in like 4 or 5 days or whatever the case is, and you did so good leading up to it, it's just important to know that that's a part of the process too. So long as that you're showing up every day, getting your mind right, your pre-call process, what you're doing when you're not working, just keep going, because ultimately, and this is sales 101 regardless, is every no leads you closer to a yes. So long as that you're trying, you're working hard, you want to get better, I really think that success is going to come to anybody so long as that they keep going. Without a doubt. Dude,
it's just about, 1% better a day. And you said something that was really important. You mentioned as long as you're doing the reps is kind of what I heard you say, that in my mind, it's kind of like the high value activities. Like, what are you doing when you have a no-show or you have the off time, right? Are you watching your own calls? Are you jumping on role plays? Are you reaching out to someone on the team and asking for help, right? That is important. Don't skip them. Don't stop them is what I hear you saying. Continue that on. Just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you stop going back to practice, right? And doing the basics that makes the greats. And then also, it's like, yeah, you need the lows, because I think 50 Cent has a song that talks about, joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain, so it's also necessary.
Yeah.
So that's powerful, dude. Do you think being broke is a mindset?
Being broke as a mindset. I don't know. It's like that. Actually, as you said that 50 Cent, I think I'll go to another one. I think I heard Ice Cube say, if you're not willing to do something, and, take this for a grain of salt, but he said, if you're not willing to do something you love for 5 years and not get paid, you may as well not do it. It's not quite the same when it comes to sales. Some you should have success closer, earlier than 5 years. But the point of what that says to me and resonates with me is like, you may have struggles. You may go through a period of time where financially things are difficult. That doesn't mean that you have to embody this idea of I'm never going to make it. There's a difference between breaking through obstacles and embodying this kind of like loser, victim, whatever. Like it just never works out for me, or it's never gonna blow. I mean, because I can even tell you, even being in this circumstance, like I had success in sales in the past, but I never had the encapsulating feeling of being in a 100% commission role, making tens of thousands of dollars a month, with a new perspective. Even I've had this really eye-opening perspective of what my own future can be like. So yeah, there will be lows. I think more than anything is to have this mindset that, iron sharpens iron. The things that are going to be difficult so long as that you approach them appropriately, can make you way better, versus sinking down into yourself. And I mean, like I said, you don't want to live in those places. Reach out to friends, reach out to other closers. And people are going to help you get past it. Just keep showing up.
I love it. So you've been here now 8 months or something like that. What has been your best month at One Call Closers?
I guess it was probably March. I think I sold like 160,000 or so far. So
160K.
And another interesting kind of tidbit about that, I think it's relevant, is in the month of March, I was really preparing hard for competition, actually, the North American Kettlebell Juggling Open that I went to. And of course, that was a great experience. But as a part of me preparing for that, I actually reduced some of my hours.
In March?
In March.
Wow.
So I actually reduced my hours, but my AOV went up. And it kind of I think it was both a combination of me working hard and some other life changes, if I'm being honest with you, even going back in like January. I would never say I was like a big drinker or anything necessarily, but I went sober. So I've been sober now for 4 or 5 months. That's helped a lot with clarity, presence of mind, connecting with people, being able to have really good, intimate conversations with folks and getting them to trust you, of course. But all of that, that was able to happen. That was a really cool experience to be able to have the time that I needed to prepare for something that I really loved and cared about and was passionate about. It doesn't necessarily make me tons of money right now, maybe one day, but it's something that I really want to do and that I care about. So being able to advance my skill set, so my AOV, and my AOV went way up, a lot more up. And that not only helped me to secure more sales, but bigger sales. And that's how you get to that 150K plus mark, and you're able to do it. In my case, I was fortunate to be able to do it even while reducing my hours.
That's pretty wild, dude. How did that feel once maybe you got that deposit? Because I think that would have been the biggest month you've had, right, in sales.
Yeah, that was probably, I think that was just under 21,000.
We got to be counting money right now. Let's go, dude. 21 G's. That's freaking incredible. On a fitness offer, dude, with the average order value of, I'm going to assume, somewhere between 3 and 4K.
Yeah, it's probably about, and I think last time I checked, it was like 4,300 or something.
4,300. That's actually solid for that account. That's a super solid AOV, dude. That tells me you're going in, you want to really deliver value, right? And so you want to really help people, and you're willing to be confident in having that conversation where I feel like a lot of people get weak, and they don't realize like the more the person pays, the more likely they are to pay attention and actually do the work, especially when it comes to fitness, right? Most people don't take action, and you probably know this. I don't need to preach to the choir, but that's just kind of what it is, But I've seen so many lives changed. And you don't know. You never know when you have that person that's just sick and tired of being sick and tired. They get on the phone with Jared, and you build that trust. You do such a good job delivering the value. Something sparks in them. They make the change, and then bam, you get that testimonial. It's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone that you haven't already, that's looking to jump into remote high ticket sales?
Well, I definitely think kind of knowing your why or what's led you to the thought of wanting to do that. I mean, I think in theory, it sounds perfect, right? I only have to work these hours and I can make this kind of money, but it's not. I mean, it's there's a sausage making process. It's not all pretty, right? So I think like the cool part is like, yes, you can make way more money than in most cases people have ever made before. You have you don't have a boss breathing down your neck. You've got time. A lot of cases. You can make your schedule in a lot of cases. So that's all true, and it's awesome. But it's again, it's not going to be perfect, and you'll have lulls, and you'll run through difficulties, and in some cases, with certain offers and so forth, if you don't have experience, you'll have to make an investment to do that. And that's in large part because the company's investing in you, and they're paying for leads and things like that. So I think it's one of these things that and not only that, but you do have to, especially in the beginning, give time.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was talking with Christian about in the first days. It was like I didn't, in a kind of a nice, whether a twist of fate or destiny or just God, I had 30 hours the second week that I talked to him that I didn't have the week prior. And you can't just go in and want to work like an hour or two a day because you've got to get reps. So ultimately, understanding that the more that you're able to fully invest your energy, your effort, your time, and maybe even some dollars on the front end for something that will pay off over a long time, it makes it way more worth it. And then when you do achieve those results, holy cow, it makes you really go look at the journey, and you're like, wow, like this is when you really feel like things are changing in ways that you might not have expected. So going into it is understanding what that's going to look like. And if you feel like you're in a position where you're ready to commit to something like that, as well as just difficult conversations, no-shows, cancellations, even refunds, things like that, all of it goes with it. But, so long as that you understand that there's a process to making the sausage, it can taste really good at the end of it.
That's really powerful, dude. And you mentioned to me you waited too long to bet on yourself. And I don't know if that meant literally on this opportunity or maybe different areas of life, right? But I find it interesting that you literally bet on yourself coming into the sales organization, because if you don't know, right, we're more of like a coaching plus placement sales agency, right? Because for the kind of very reasons Jared stated, well, he didn't state that we work with the biggest clients. We're some of the biggest clients in the space, but that's one reason. But we provide leads, and then we take a bet on you, right? We're going to pour a lot of time and effort and attention and energy into you. And to his point, if you're not committed, right, then like, are you going to be showing up a certain type of way? That is why we have the model, but you literally took a bet on yourself. Is that what you meant? What you shared with me earlier, or were we talking about something else?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, I would say that and diving into a full-time space of 100% commission. So I wasn't like, I never did like car sales or something like that I sold life insurance in college, that was 100% commission, but I wasn't looking to earn a full-time income at that point. I was still a student. And so since being out, since graduating college, having had jobs that up to, after that basically were all salary plus commission, I had never done a full-time exclusive 100% commission sales role. Back in 2023, I gave some shots at being a full-time personal trainer for a while, but and for a number of different reasons, I wanted to kind of turn the page on that for some different things. But this was really me making, absolutely an investment in myself. And I knew that, generally speaking, my experience in life has been up to this point where when you do bet on yourself, that's when you're going to get the best results. And it's funny because I knew that even coming into that point, but that's exactly what happened for sure. And there's so much reward and validation that comes from that, without a doubt.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you, dude. It brings me a lot of joy when I hear people like you winning. They come in, they take the bet, they take advantage of the opportunity, and then they're here now, right? And so that's freaking awesome. It gets me excited. And I know that's one of the things that really excites Rich is, as we've kind of scaled and grown, and I've kind of been here from day one. I think I was the third person at part of the agency, and I left a $6,000 base commission, not commission only, sales gig, where the commission was super strong, $6,000 every franchise that I sold, and I was banging out $7,000 to $12,000 franchises, 7 to 12 franchises on a given month, and I had a pretty nice base, and I jumped into this thing straight, 1099, no base, and so it's definitely interesting, and it's been rewarding, and it's been life changing. So it's been a journey for sure, man. There's a couple things I want to ask you, and then just see if there's anything that we haven't talked about today that you want to bring up. But I'd love to know. And this is something I'm going to start doing with every guest. You're kind of the first person I'm testing this with, but every closer I bring in, I want to give them like and in this case, it doesn't have to be 2 or 3, but like one objection, the infamous, I need to think about it. I would love to know, like, you have somebody on the phone, right? You know, Mrs. Jones needs the product. They confirmed they need the product. You determine we can help solve their problem, right? And you get to the end of the close. You know this is for them, but there's a little bit of maybe fear. There's a little bit of hesitation. There's a little bit of they're in their own head because they maybe haven't shown up for themselves before and X, Y, and Z, whatever the thing is, right? It could be thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of different things. But when you get an I need to think about it objection, how do you handle that?
And I need to think about it specifically?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I'm trying to get So there's a lot of ways to go about objection handling in general.
100%. I should have prefaced it with that, by the way.
And it's like, it's interesting, right? Because, this is kind of where I was saying like the Jedi mind tricks part earlier. You can find a lot of ways to get people past the line, but I think you as a closer will feel more satisfied when people are really bought in. So, that's when you want to be less salesy and ideally by that point, Mike, you've built some rapport with the customer.
100%.
They trust you at some point. So they're like, there's I need to think about it. That's like, they're just struggling to find a way to tell you that I don't want to do this, And then there's I think about it because, I've got this thing coming up next month, the payment, or, I've got this trip coming up, or, I've already spent so much money on other products I just don't know if it'll work, That's the kind of thing you want to find, I think, because, there's tons of people that offer all kinds of closing advice. Do whatever you got to do to get past the deal, get the deal. And I've somewhat shifted my mindset because, even if you get somebody past the line, they pay or whatever, do a payment plan or pivot or whatever, the odds are though, if you've had to work it down and your willpower is beat them up to the point where okay, I'll do it, they're probably still going to refund, or at least that seems to be the case that I've experienced at this point. Whereas if they really want to, but there's something deep inside, there's something they really want to, but there's just something holding them up. That's when you can be an advisor to them. That's when you can have that rapport of that conversation back and forth and say, so really, what is it? Is it something that, you're worried that it won't work for you? Well, no, it sounds like it'll work. Okay. So if it works, is it worth the money spent? Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, is it just that, there's a length of time here, or maybe, because here's the deal. I want to help them. I want to find whatever is really going to be the exact thing that they need. And sometimes people feel comfortable with maybe a lower, on this, for example, this fitness offer, a lower length of time with a coach, and maybe a plan that's just a little bit smaller because they just want to try it out, and and things like that. And so that is where you get to play that opportunity to actually find the thing that the plan or the opportunity or the offer that really connects with them, and then they'll probably still stick it out versus just beating them down. No, you got to do this. You need to keep, and just using whatever you can to get them past the line, because if they're not there, it could be difficult on the back end anyway. So it's not the case with all offers. But I would say just listening to the core of what that particular objection is and why they're saying it can help you in the call on a good note.
Yeah, that's powerful. Be an advisor, help them. And I think just, have an honest conversation about what's going on, right? Try to clarify and understand what is the thing that's holding them back, and can you make it make sense at that point? As Christian says, that's kind of his famous line.
Yeah.
Can you make it make sense? Good stuff, man. Well, this is really good. Is there anything I haven't brought up related to your background or your story, or anything related to sales that you want to chat about?
I would just say this is kind of the back to the betting on yourself thing. We, a lot of our closers, actually I say a lot, but we have closers that are not in the United States. And so this is an awesome opportunity even for people like that. But for example, I just take the fact that being an American living in the US, there's opportunity out there, and it takes work. It takes effort. If you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to commit to something over a long period of time, you're going to have results, and you're going to be proud of yourself for having had gone through difficult experiences along the way en route to something better. And even if whatever the experience is, whatever your sales role is right now, whether it's full commission or or partial salary, whatever the case is. If you look at it as an opportunity and you're going to learn things, you're going to fail, you're going to realize it all adds up. And so long as you make the sense of it, dollars and cents as well as the actual experience of what you've gone through, and you apply it correctly over time, I 100% think that you're going to put yourself in a position to be proud of. And that's what we all want, is to be excited about a good future and happy with the journey that we've been on, because we've kept with it, kept going. And then the success will come along the way.
Hot damn. Jared Thomas, you bring a lot of wisdom to the show, dude. I appreciate you a ton, man. This was exciting. I'm excited for our summit. If you guys don't know, we have an annual summit, our One Call Closer Summit, happening here in Southern California. So Jared is actually my first guest here, which I'm super fired up to meet you in person, dude. And I'm excited to hang the next couple days with you. But ladies and gentlemen, that's Jared Thomas for you. Jared, I hope to have you back on, dude. Anytime you're in town, let me know. Would love to do it again, or we can do it virtually. But appreciate you, dude. And let's share it up the next couple days.
For sure. Thank you, Mike. This was awesome.
Man. See you guys.